Hey folks, Carl here and welcome to episode 3 of Amusing Hobbies Conqueror Mark 1, the FV214. Okay folks, in this episode we are going to start the weathering process, and we are going to be starting on the wheels. As you saw in the last episode, we've already started this one and we got to that point. Let me zoom that in a bit. It's a little bit close to the light, so if we zoom you in there. So we've already started on the drive sprocket, as you can see. Very simple process, and all as we have done, I'll zoom you back out, and all we've done on there is dry brushing with two primary colours. We've used the FV214 dark iron first, and then we've lightly gone over the top of that with the FV214 metallic grey, and very similar to any dry brushing that you do. Let me get a bit of tissue, like so. We don't need this great big huge piece. Rip it in half, save that part for later. Now I'm using Citadel's small dry brush for this. I don't even remember buying this or where I got it from, so yeah, a very good brush. So we're taking our dark iron first, give it a little bit of a shake. Same with any dry brushing, and I can't get that off. Get out our handy little tool, which is this one and this one, and look at that, easy as pie. Put that back away. Same with, like I say, same with any dry brushing. Brush, a little bit of paint on the brush, and then get rid of most of it. I'll zoom back in. Always the wrong way. I haven't said that for a while. So all we're doing, obviously these wheels rotate, so we're just going to very gently dry brush over the top, like so. Not massively hard. I'm going to slowly turn it around because it's going in a very circular motion. So we might need to reload our brush. Put in a bit more paint. Very gentle. Keep going round so it's on, not massively heavy, but reasonably heavy for this, what the effect we're looking for. We want a little bit on the insides, a bit more on the brush. Around this centre. And a little bit on top here. And there we go, that is our first colour on. I may have gone a little bit heavier, but we are now going to go over with the metallic. We're not going to need much time for that to dry. Obviously it's gone on quite thin. Clean up our brush. Open up our metallic, give it a quick shake. That one was much tighter. Again, fill the brush, take away the excess, and then exactly the same process, just a little bit lighter, just to give it that metallic tinge. To make it look as though we've gone through gone through the paint onto the metal, which is the dark iron, and then this has been polished because it's the part that's mostly used or mostly in contact with something else. So we're getting there. Check I'm still on camera. So we're concentrating mainly on the teeth with this colour. We are going to move into the centre and do a little bit there as well. But not a huge amount. Mainly to try and get the very high points, like the nuts and the bolts, the crooks and the nannies. Very small amount on the hub. And there we go. I think that is going to do us. Let's have a look at it compared to the other one, see how similar they are. They don't need to be identical. So yeah, as you can see, I've gone a little bit heavier on that one. I prefer the look of this one. It looks a little bit more used. So we are going to go over the top of this one with a little bit more and make it a little bit darker. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to get these other wheels done as well. Exactly the same process. Same with all of these. Exactly the same process, and we'll come back when we're done and we shall take a quick look, and I will talk to you then. Okay folks, that is the first 4 main wheels done. We've got the 2 dry sprockets now looking similar. Thankfully they're not identical, that'd be no good. And we've got the guide wheels or the tensioning wheels done as well. So let me know in the comments your thoughts on how they look. All done by dry brushing. There's no washes or anything on this yet. So that is the first 4 wheels done, and we are now going to move on to this lot. So wish me luck. Talk to you shortly. Okay folks, as you've just seen in that short clip, we have now got the smaller wheels done, and they are very much in line with the previous two. So that is all of those done. I'm going to get these few small wheels done exactly the same way. I'm not going to show that at all. And then we're going to start to work on the lower hull, and we're just going to be doing the same process on all of these raised parts here, just to give us a bit of continuity between the parts. And then as we move up onto the upper hull, we're going to get a lot lighter on this. There's still going to be some more on the edges of the boxes and stuff like that. And then onto the upper hull, where we'll be doing is pretty much just edge work. So I'm going to continue, carry on, get this done, and talk to you in a moment. Okay folks, so we have started the lower hull. As you can see, we've started to do some work on this side. We've done a very small amount on the front, and I've just suddenly realised we haven't put the decals on yet, so I need to get these on. Now the instructions is not very clear on decal placement. It actually only shows you like 2 or 3 decals, so a little bit of research on the interwebs, and the Dragon kit has a very good decal layout scheme for the 7th Armoured Brigade Boer 1960s, and it is a Desert Rat. So we'll be using one of these Desert Rat symbols, the triangles and the number plate, and the 80 mark that's in there as well. So you don't need me to show you how to put decals on, so I'm going to get these decals done and we can continue with the weathering. So talk to you in a moment. Okay folks, that is the decals on. We've got the black stripe there, the Desert Rat logo on. We've got the very small first aid mark on there as well, and we've even put the Amusing Hobbies logo on the bottom. We've got the 80 marker on that front fender there. There's no other decals on the upper hull, and on the main turret we put the 2 triangles at the front, and we've gone and put the Union Jack just on the side here. Now these here are not bits of scrap. These are the numbers to go onto the top of these black stripes, one at the front, one at the back. Now I've got to wait for these to dry thoroughly, so I'm going to give them 2 or 3 hours to dry properly before we get these numbers stuck down. Otherwise I've got the chance of just pulling this decal or this decal back up off the model. So I am going to go and do something else, and I shall talk to you all later. Okay folks, so as you can see, work is continuing. We've now got the base lower hull finished up with the dry brushing method of doing the scratches and all the rest of that stuff, the wear and tear. We've started on these panels. Still unsure if we're going to be using these or not yet, but I think I probably am. So we've got this one completed. You can see it there. And to compare the difference, it is like so. You know, this camera's not picking it up brilliantly well, but there's actually, again, same as on the low hull, there's 2 different colours. You've got the dark iron and the metallic grey on top, very lightly. We've now got the tracks over by the spray booth ready to spray. We've still got to do the commander's hatch, the upper hull and the main turret to do, and I've just been reminded on that the land warfare group build that this is being made for has only got 12 days left, so I've been a bit negligent on the desk for the last few weeks and not done a huge amount. So I need to start cracking on with these. The next stage for the lower hull is we are going to put a brown wash stroke filter over the top using the Winton oil colour, the Van Dyke Brown. We've already done this process on the wheels, so we've gone over the top of what we did on these wheels with a very thin filter stroke wash on those wheels. You can see it more clearly on the small guide wheels because we've not done any weathering on these. We've just gone straight for the wash. You can see it on there. We'll see if we'll zoom in a little bit and make it a little bit more clear of what we've done. There we go. So we've literally just put the wash over the top of that. There's no weathering on there at all. So it's paint and then a wash. So we're going to now do this with the lower hull. And we're going to do it on this side panel as well. So we need a little bit of terps, which we have here. Unfortunately this is the smelly stuff. I do have the odourless stuff from Abteilung, but I save this when I'm doing intricate and delicate work. So we're going to mix some of this really thin into our mixing palette. So I'm going to get that done, and then we'll come back and we'll wash over the top of these and we'll see how it changes the look. They're probably more clear on when we do this and compare it to this rather than on the hull. So I'll get this done and we'll be back in a moment. Okay folks, so we're going to get a very small amount of this brown. Don't need a huge amount. We'll just fill the tip of this brush like so. Get that in there, and that is pretty much all as we're going to want. We'll then get our terps, get a pipette, fill the pipette up, move this to one side, and we're going to pretty much fill this bowl to there. I'm going to get this mixed up and then see how thin it is, and if we need to thin it a bit more we'll add a little bit more thinners. Make sure we get all the oil out of the brush. Get that oil all mixed up properly because it will break into little parts, and then you'll find that you end up getting a big blob of brown oil paint on your piece. So if we paint the inside of there now, you can see, I don't want to spill this, you can see how thin this is. So it's almost a filter wash, not quite a full wash. In fact, I'm going to put a little bit more in there just to thin that out a tiny little bit more. And there we go. I think that will do us. So I'm just going to clean this part of my palette up, because if you leave it too long it's more of a job to do. So I'm going to get a glove on. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint what about foam? I can use, let's use this one for now, because that stuff's stinking. And what we're going to do, we're going to paint this one first so it's got plenty of time to dry out while we do the main hull. So all we're going to do, we're going to put a very thin layer right over the top of all of this, like so, and you can already see how dark it's going. Don't forget the edges, just in case we can see them when they're on the model. Now I'm going to dry my brush out on a bit of tissue, like so, and we're going to go back over the top again and take some of this off, because we don't want it on very thick at all for the most part. We're going to put some more on again in a minute. We're just taking off the majority. So all we're pretty much doing is staining it. And now you can see the colour difference. You should be able to see the colour difference straight away. I can't tell on this little viewer on the camera, but I can tell it by eye. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fill our brush, empty some of it out, and we're going to fill these little seam lines in where the two connections of panels are supposed to be. So we fill that in like so. We're going to clean our brush off again, and we're going to soak that back up, but leave that panel filled in. Dry off our brush, pick up the excess here as well, very, very gently. We don't want to take any more out of that seam line. Which I think I have done on that one, which I'll take a look in a second. My brush doesn't seem to want to dry. There we go. No, it stayed in there. So now we've filled those seam lines in. Turn this light down a little bit. So let's fill that out, and it's toned it down quite a bit. So we compare it to what we had before to what we have now. There we go. So I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to move it to one side and let it dry out completely. Hopefully it'll be dry by the time we finish this, and then we may give it a second coat. So we're not going to do that one because we haven't done the thing in it yet. So now we're going to do exactly the same on here. We're going to fill our brush, and we're going to fill all the seams and put a thin layer over the top, like so. We're going to fill this like so. Dry off our brush, and we'll take the excess away from the flat parts of the model. Just like so. What I am going to do is I'm going to just dry off my brush. It's about keeping your brush as dry as possible. The reason being, we don't want the brush marks in there. We just want to soak all this excess up, like so. We have toned that right down now. So I'm going to cut the film in here. I'm going to get all this bit done, wait for that bit to dry, and then we'll see if we need to add a second coat. So I'll talk to you in a moment. Okay folks, this is now dry, as you can see, and I think I'm going to put another coat on there. Now I'm not sure if I've got enough left in the brush to get a complete coat, but we've run out in the palette. So we're going to very roughly see how much of this we can get covered. So there we go. I'm going to dry this out because it's put down more than I expected it to. I'm going to come this way. Just get that dry. It kind of looks dry, but it's actually quite wet. There we go. Maybe a little bit darker, but not a huge amount. Let's zoom in. Light's a bit too bright if we get too close. So yeah, I think that will do us. Can you still see the metal tint in there? I don't think you can on the camera, but you can with your eye. There's still that like little metal showing through the paintwork. So yeah, I'm happy with that. So we will put this to one side. Our tank is drying. You can see there, that's the bottom that's not been done. Like so, and there's the sides. The front that we did on camera. The back. You can see that metal showing through on there quite nicely. And the other side as well. So we're starting to take shape, and of course these panels sit just on those racks there. So they're going to be sitting kind of like that. This is for actually for the other side. So yeah, it's going to sit in quite nicely if we put them on, which I'm tending to go more and more towards actually putting them on. But do we want to cover up all this detail? That's still wet, still glistening. Let's zoom out a bit. So now those are washed, we are going to clean up this bit. Right, so done. One side. We're now going to get the dry brushing done on this, and we're going to start. I'm going to do this commander's hatch first because it's nice, small and reasonably easy. Then we're going to do the upper hull, and remember there's not going to be a huge amount done on the upper hull or on the turret or on the commander's hatch. Literally a couple of few edges and maybe a couple of little scratch marks and things like that. So I'm going to carry on, get this done. Hopefully this is all going to be done in the next 12 days. So I don't know whether I'm going to fit it all in one episode. We might get this weathering part done and the first wash down, because I plan to put some powders as well on the lower hull to give it that really dusty and grimy effect. So we shall see. Yeah, get this done and we'll be back in a moment. Okay folks, so we are back. We have weathered up the edging and everything on the main turret now, and again we've just done this with a dry brush, just rubbing it on and dabbing it. So we are now about to apply the filter stroke wash over the top of this. We've got the second I don't know what these are called, the shields for the wheels. So both of those are now done and ready to go on if we decide to use them. We've still got the upper hull and the commander's hatch to do. I was going to do the commander's hatch first, but I thought I would try it out on this first. And of course we've got the dark iron and the metallic grey. Yeah, the metallic grey on there. I can never remember what it's called. So now we're just going to put this wash stroke filter on. We're using the Van Dyke brown again. We've mixed some up ready here. Really thin again. And we're just going to very gently wash over the top of this to darken it down a little bit and try and get some of this stuff to blend together. I'm being quite liberal with it, and we will come back once it starts to dry out to take some of this off. We're not drowning the brush, we're just putting enough on to spread out. Hopefully we don't get it pooling too much or too many brush marks in it. You can see there the difference. It's quite shiny now, so it's going to be quite difficult. I'll brush off a bit and take some of this excess off because it's starting to get a little bit too thick. There we go. Now we can get this top section done. Go. Get the excess off now. Pick up as much as we can with the brush, dry it off, rinse and repeat, trying to remove as much of the brush marks as we possibly can. You don't always get them all. We can get it to a point where they are quite difficult to see, and try and even this out a little bit more. And then hopefully once this is dry we'll be able to see. I'm going to put some in here to try and darken this up a little bit. And we're going to leave that on there quite thick. There's a bit more definition in the what's supposed to be like a leather cloth mantlet cover. What I find usually when doing this part is it can take quite a bit of time, but as the model starts to dry out, because you'll get it pooling in places, but once the model starts to dry out and you continue to brush it and dry your brush, it will eventually start to dry out properly, and then your brush marks will get better and better and better, and slowly they'll be very, very difficult to see. Just keep brushing away. You'll keep getting streaks come along as you find a little wet patch. However, if you just keep working it, they will slowly disappear. And if you find a spot that's dried out completely, you can always add a little bit more onto it to reactivate it, make it wet again, and then make it disappear. Under here is not so important, but if you so, but we'll still do it. And there, get this front turret done. And there we go. That is that done. Zoom a bit in a little bit, so we're not so close to the light. So there we go. It's now looking much better, much more toned down. We can still see the metal effects that we've put on over the top of our dark iron, and that's the effect we're looking for. We want it to look as worn as the one on the game World of Tanks. That's the one. If you look at the models on World of Tanks, they are still done very similar to this, where they've got wear and tear, and it actually shows you the metal showing through. It's right, this aerial came off earlier on and I've glued it back on, and it's dried. Or as I've been moving this around, I've caught it and bent it forward a bit, so I'm just pushing it back to where it was. So there we go, there is the turret done. We are going to add some dust effects to these later on, but that's going to be in the next episode. So there we go. Right, we can peg this up, put it to one side, and we've got one last piece to work on, which is, of course, oh, sorry, we've got two more pieces to work on. One should be quite quick. We can put this over here now because it's done. One will be quite quick because it's this, there's not a lot to it, so that should be reasonably quick. And then we've got this to do. I've gone and painted the exhausts dark brown. This one we've already started. Dark brown, a brown, so we can start to add the rust effects. I've done a little bit of dry brushing on these tracks as well. I don't know whether that's going to pick that up. And we've added a very thin black on top of all the metal of the tools to try and give those a toned effect. Like I say, I'm not sure if that camera's picking that up or not, but we did that quite early on, so there we go. Right, I'm going to get these last two done and dusted, and then we'll come back and we'll take a look at them all. So I'm going to dry this off, clean my palette. I have been quite bad for not doing and keeping my palette clean. As you can see, some parts are now quite difficult to clean up, so try your best when you finish, clean your palette. It will last longer. So there we go. Right, talk to you in a bit. Okay folks, so as you can see, we have now done, or I thought I'd done, all of the weathering. So the main upper hull and turret are now all done, finished. The bottom you've already seen done, but we have started to add on the wheels. These are now fixed in place. We've got the other wheels to add still. We have gone and got the tracks now primed, so they're ready to be worked on. We've still got a few bits to add onto here. We've got these fire extinguishers to add. I'm still undecided whether to add the smoke launchers or not. I have a feeling I'm not going to. But what I did notice I hadn't done at all was the turret. So just for a comparison, if you look at, this was the original colour and we are now toned down quite a bit. You can see the difference is quite striking there. So we've still got this to do. However, I am going to call this video done. I'm going to get that main gun done off camera. We've got these. I think I am going to add these panels onto the side. So yes, we are done for this video. So I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. As always, be good, be safe, and of course keep making models, and we'll see you next time. Ta-ta. Okay folks, that is the forced